I'm sorry, guys, that I haven't been posting, but I have been watching the Derek Chauvin trial. Derek Chauvin is a former Minneapolis police officer, and he is on trial for the death of George Floyd. Derek Chauvin is accused of having his knee on George Floyd's neck for what we thought was 8 minutes and 29 seconds. But we found out in court that it was not 8 minutes and 29 seconds. We found out that it was 9 minutes and 26 seconds. And you might say, well, what difference does a minute make? A difference makes a lot of minutes when you're trying to breathe. And I personally think that the prosecution is presenting the case that details the actions taken by Derek Chauvin. That Derek Chauvin used lethal force on George Floyd even after George Floyd was down on the ground. Derek Chauvin has no defense to what he did to Mr. Floyd. And you can tell that by his attorney, because his attorney seems like he's lost. He asking all these dumb questions that don't even make sense to him, I bet. He is trying to say that that's what Derek Chauvin was taught in the academy, and his sergeant and lieutenants got on stage and said he was not trained to put his knee on somebody's neck for 9 minutes and 26 seconds in the academy. That was not a part of his training. That was just Derek Chauvin being downright low down to George Floyd because he could. And he was looking at those bystanders that was yelling at him and telling him to get his knee off George Floyd's neck like he was daring them to do something to stop him. He knew what he was doing was wrong. And even after George Floyd had kept telling him he couldn't breathe 27 times, Derek Chauvin still kept his knee on his neck. Even after the man had passed away, even after George Floyd had passed away, Derek Chauvin still had his knee on his neck. The paramedics had to ask him to remove his knee from George Floyd's neck so that they could put him on the stretcher. And you could tell once they had put him on that stretcher that he had already passed away. What he did by kneeling on his neck was he cut off the blood flow to his brain and to his heart and to his lungs, which caused his body to shut down. Guys, we have seen police officers go on trial before. In the case of Michael Brown, Derek Wilson walked away. He may not be a police officer anymore, but he's still alive and working somewhere in New York, I believe. He just walked away. So the whole world is watching to see. We're watching and waiting to see if George Floyd will get justice. We're waiting and we're watching to see if Mr. Floyd will get justice. All right, guys. I'm sorry I hadn't posted. I've been watching the trial. Y'all stay healthy, stay blessed, and I'm out. Rest in peace, Mr. Floyd.